Once upon a time, there was a 20-year-old who was in the retail world working at a mobile phone store. And as he started to work, thinking he's going to sell a variety of phones and all these brands, that wasn't the case. As he started, it was a base and commission type of job. Obviously, the more you sell, the more accessories you put, the more add-ons you put, you get paid more. And he noticed that people would come in for the one phone to conquer them all, the iPhone. And there was this trend that he began to notice. People would come in, they'd have two options, white phone and a black phone. And occasionally they did not even know how to choose that. Most people got the cheapest option, which was the 8 GB at the time. And look how far we've come. Over the course of the years that he worked there, iPhone began to release multiple colors, 3 different sizes. People began to take more time in making their decision. They'd have decision fatigue. They'd get confused. Maybe they want this one. No, they want this one. Luckily, we embedded a $35 return fee. Most people would obviously fight for that. You probably thinking I wouldn't pay that because you got to make better decisions. Or make the decision and stick with it, even if you end up not liking it. It's just a color. They all do the same thing anyway. But that's used to be my thoughts. But hey, people like what they like. And over time, he realized something. He started seeing it in the world. I never tried this chair, so I'm going to try it real quick. Hold up. How far back does it go? Oh, it's a full lay down, bro. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And that gentleman was me back in the day, about 12 years ago, working at this mobile phone store in Brooklyn, New York, and just seeing that shift, seeing from having barely any options and how easy people were able to say, yeah, most women went with white, funny enough, and most men went with black. Before I left, there was like the iPhone 5C, I think. It was the one that had like 6 colors, all these colors. The amount of times during that time I've experienced people come back to try to change their color and try to see if they don't pay the $35 return fee. Some people pay that return fee just to change a color, nothing else. We had to restock that. We couldn't sell that. We had to send it back to the company. It was open, it was used. But all this to say, yeah, I'm using a phone analogy. Over the years, I've formulated a hypothesis to call this the iPhone problem. See, the iPhone problem is something that we are struggling with as a society in general, at least here in the Western parts of society. I can't speak for the same in the Eastern part, but I'm pretty sure they're dealing with the same thing. The rise of social media, streaming services, cell phones, dating apps. We are in abundance of options. There's a reason why America has such a high obesity rate, for instance. There's a reason why America and other Western countries are suffering with rising issues of loneliness, depression, because there's too many options. When you go on social media, it's really hard to put that phone down. It's really hard to stop scrolling. There are options. You go on dating apps. There's a reason why people are having a hard time with monogamous relationships. There's a reason why people say dating sucks, because there's too many options. There's a problem. And that's where lies my hypothesis, this philosophy that I started to really think about over the last year as I entered the dating market myself and seeing what was out there and seeing the amount of options and seeing I'm not I'm not a 10 out of 10, but I know I'm not a 2 out of 10 neither. I know I'm pretty attractive, I'm pretty successful, I think I'm really good with people. I have goals, I have dreams, I have a purpose. This is attractive to women. I can speak on a lot of men that can do the same. You have all these options with everything you do, so it's really hard, it's really exhausting on the brain. And I have decided to not be part of the options, to not sit there and be like, well, I can jump on 4 different apps, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, for instance, or whatever. Instead, I was like, I'm just gonna do YouTube. The other 2, whatever, like post and ghosts. I'm taking a sabbatical on all the apps right now with the exception of YouTube because I don't want options anymore. Like my brain was always exhausted before. And now I feel much better not being on apps, honestly. And it's been about 2 weeks, so we'll see. Not only that, but like you go on dating apps, for instance. I hear a lot of friends struggle with this, that they suffer from the curse of there's probably something better. Or they suffer the curse of they can't handle very difficult conversation with this person, and they say they jump on the app. Oh, they got mad at the person even though they've only been seeing them for 2 to 3 months, and then they're already on the apps looking for the next thing because they can't be uncomfortable. That's really a struggle with us right now. And with the iPhone problem that I saw, and people having a hard time, they would take much longer in choosing a color, a gigabyte size, storage size for their phone. I would just sit there and be like, just make a decision. And sometimes I would push them for it, like especially if they were like looking at one specifically, but I didn't want to do that because occasionally they would come back and try to return it for a color they wanted before. Try to utilize other tactics like, hey, you can put a case on it that can change the color for you, or you can do this and you can do that. There were like these films you can put on the phone to make it a specific color. Like, but at the end of the day, what if those things didn't exist and you had the options? I'm a big fan of removing as many options and obstacles as possible so you can make a decision as fast as possible in anything you do. This iPhone problem is creating more anxiety because we have decision fatigue, and when we have decision fatigue, we make worse choices than we would if we didn't deal with this decision fatigue. You scrolling through freaking how many streaming apps there are now, like 14, maybe more, scrolling through different apps, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. When you go to work, you have all these different options of things to choose from to like solve a specific problem for a project you're working on, and you're like, why do I have all these options? I should have one. Yeah, it's probably not perfect, but guess what? Life isn't perfect. What I've been trying for a while now is to not give myself that many options. When the iPhone 14 was coming out, I got the iPhone 13. And when I went in there, obviously, again, they have all these colors. I knew exactly the color I wanted. So I'm going in for the army green. I know the size I'm getting. I don't need something that's too large. I like to take videos and stuff with my camera and use it for B-roll and things. So I was like, I know this one works right for me. Made a decision, went with it, and I'm not gonna get a phone for another 4 or 5 years probably. I'm making sure this phone lasts forever. So I was like, that's perfect for me for the next few years. I'm good. I've not thought about it since. You think I look at any iPhone 14, I didn't care. iPhone 15, still don't care. iPhone 16 is gonna come out, I'm still not gonna care. It's about zoning in on the decision fatigue and making sure you make swift decisions. You know what you want. You sit there and you figure out, this is exactly what I'm looking for in a device I'm trying to buy, a person I'm trying to date. Before even going into the dating market, you should know what you want, especially you guys that are in your early 20s, you ladies that are in your early 20s. You probably have a sense of it, but you haven't sat and really thought about it. And that shit takes a long time. Sit there, write down pros and cons, previous experience. Hey, I dated these people. This is what I loved most about them, and this is what I really disliked about them. As my future unfolds, and these are the goals I want to pursue, and this is where I want to live, and this is how many kids I want. All these things that you have to think about as you enter the dating market. Same thing is true. Once you figure out what you want, you can make better decisions. And guys, I know you're out there probably like trying to smash as many women as possible. Don't even think about that. It's not worth it. I've spoken to guys who have hundreds of women. Audio pooped out in the last part of this video. But I was trying to say, met guys like that. I'm not one of those guys, to be honest. I don't see the value in that at all. Seems like it becomes a very dark path for guys who have. But anyway, to close out the video, decision fatigue is a real thing. The world is unfortunately giving us too many options where instead of making proper decisions, we always feel like we're making the wrong decision. And as mentioned earlier, just trying to remove as many decisions as possible and just sticking with maybe 2 to 3 at most. And when I notice that there's too many options, I know it's really hard to calculate and formulate the best decision, like calculation. It's all based on your experience, how you grew up, what you enjoy now, what do you value, so many different aspects of life to make a decision. All that comes into play. Decisions for your relationship, decisions for the next phone you're gonna buy, decisions in the food you're gonna eat, decisions on anything you choose, hiring somebody to be a coach or the job you're gonna choose. And guess what? Those decisions won't always be right, and that's okay. You're not gonna make right decisions. One of my mentors, and I'll finish with this, once said that when it comes to leaders and how they make it to the level of leadership, and I noticed this through reading biographies, is that leaders don't always make the right decisions, but they make the decisions right. Choosing, going with it, even if it's quote unquote in societal standards wrong to do, at the end of the day, you can make it right.